بسم الله الرحمن الرحیم. هموطنان گرامی سلام، وقت شما بخیر. از صفحه جهانی سیاست افغانستان در خدمت شما هستیم، همراه با مهمان گرامی جناب اسد درانی، رئیس اسبق های پاکستان، با همکاری جناب آقای سید احمد حسینی به عنوان مترجم به صورت زنده و آنلاین در حضور شما مهمانان گرامی در سراسر جهان هستیم. امیدواریم بتوانیم یک برنامه زنده و خوب، معقول و مقبول را خدمت شما ارائه بدهیم. در طی 5-6 دهه ارتباطات همجواری با کشور جمهوری اسلامی پاکستان در از گاه سنگ‌اندازی‌های بین دو کشور نسبت به سیاست‌های هم دیگر بوده. افغانستان شاید کمتر به دلیل ناتوانی در ساختار حکومتی، ولی از طرف پاکستان شاید سنگ‌اندازی‌های وزندار بودیم. بنابراین راه حل ممکن معقول را در گفتگو و گفتمان در نهایت باید مد نظر گرفت، چرا که از قوه قهریه بین دو تا همسایه شاید جالب و مناسب نباشد که استفاده صورت بگیرد. معمولا گفتگوها در پایان هر جنگ و جدال و خسارت‌های شکل می‌گیرد. چه زیباست که ما قبل از هر گونه انگیزی بتوانیم گفتگو و گفتمان را نهادینه بسازیم تا سوء تفاهمات برطرف شود، تا در یک فرایند برد به عنوان دو تا همسایه بتوانیم از امکانات هم و همسایگان و جامعه جهانی استفاده به عمل بیاوریم. امروز یکی از کلیدترین سیاستمداران پاکستان که در گذشته رئیس سازمان استخباراتی افشای بودن، مهمان برنامه ما هستند. کوشش میکنیم سوالات کلیدی شما هم مهمانان عزیز را در ارتباط با سیاست‌های پاکستان راجع به افغانستان از ایشان داشته باشیم. اگر چنانچه شما سوالات دقیق دارید از طریق کامنت در فیسبوک بنگارید، به صورت مستقیم در پایان برنامه پرسش‌های شما لحاظ خواهد شد. من تشکر میکنم از جناب اسد درانی و همچنان جناب آقای حسینی که همکار ما هستند. احتمالاً پرسش‌ها و پاسخ‌ها به صورت محتوایی ترجمه خواهد شد، شاید واژه به واژه نباشد، همین که محتوا گرفته میشه یا داده میشه. شما مهمانان عزیز بخش زیادی از شما به زبان انگلیسی وارد هستید، میتوانید مستقیم استفاده کنید. آنهایی هم که به زبان انگلیسی تسلط ندارن، جناب آقای حسینی به صورت محتوایی کمک خواهند نمود. جناب آقای حسینی، ابتدا از شما تشکر میکنم که در دل شب 4 صبح استرالیا یعنی سیدنی بیدار هستید و برای هموطنان عزیز ما خدمت میکنید. از طرف خودم و همراهان عزیز از جناب اسد درانی تشکر میکنم و سلام دارم.
Thank you.
بفرمایید جناب آقای حسینی.
Yes, dear countrymen, Assalamu alaikum. I would like to introduce Mr. Asad Durani, the director of ISI, who is one of the very important figures in Pakistan. In the last 4 decades, there have been so many problems between Afghanistan and Pakistan, and there were some issues and problematic policies thrown to Afghanistan from Pakistan side. And of course, the Afghanistan side was also having problem in this kind of circumstances. But it is far better for both countries to have good neighborly relations and enjoy the resources which they have in these 2 countries. it is safe for both countries to have good cooperation and relations, not only for the two countries, but also for the region and for the world. In this interview, which I thank Mr. Darani and also Mr. Hosseini, we would like to focus primarily on the content of that translation. So we don't want a literal translation as long as the main point are transferred, that's okay, especially since most of our audience, they already speak English and they know for themselves. So we are going to start, and that is the beginning of our interview and discussion, I should say.
خب ابتدا اولین پرسش از خدمت ایشان خواهیم داشت جناب آقای حسینی. بنابر اعتراف هیلاری کلینتون و همچنان تایید این موضوع توسط بینظیر بوتو که طالبان را آمریکا ایجاد کرده و مجری این طرح پاکستان بوده، دخالت‌های پاکستان را در این 2-3 دهه اخیر به صورت مستقیم و محسوس تمام ملت افغانستان درک کرده. چی توضیح دارم؟
بنا به قول بینظیر بوتو و کدام منبع دیگر؟
هیلاری کلینتون، رئیس وزیر خارجه اسبق آمریکا.
The first question is, according to Hillary Clinton, the former American foreign minister, and also Mrs. Benazir Bhutto, the Taliban have been created by Pakistan. What would be your response in regard to this comment?
I'll be very happy to answer any of your questions. I really do not know what these former prime ministers and others may have said and in what context. But if I may request, just ask me a direct question and I'll be very happy to answer them. Regarding the Taliban, they came much later. Our relationship with Afghanistan started much before that. If I may remind your audience that before the Soviets invaded Afghanistan, the effort on Pakistani side, and I think on the Afghan side also, it reciprocated that the two countries are so joined in or intertwined or joined in the hip, as the Americans say, like conjoined twins, that it would be much better to create some sort of an understanding or union, if not a confederation between the two. In 1960s, our ambassador in Afghanistan, Aslam Khattak, made that proposal to Ayub Khan, and it was likely to be followed, but because of certain reasons, it was not. I'm just saying that from that background, that where did our policy about Afghanistan start? And then a major change took place when both in 65 and 71 wars, which we fought with India, Afghanistan did not create any problems on our Western fronts. And they, in fact, offered.
So would you please let me translate and then you can continue, if you please, don't mind. Thank you. ما حاضر هستم که با پرسش‌های شما پاسخ بدم، ولی خواهش میکنم که یا بهتر است که شما سوالایتان مستقیما در ارتباط با خود مطرح کنین. این که در گذشته آن نخست وزیر، صدر اعظم یا وزیر خارجه چی گفته، او مستقیما مربوط من نمیشه. مسئله سیاست پاکستان در قبال افغانستان یک قدامت قبل از با وجود آمدن طالبان داشتن، چنانچه که سابقه تاریخیش برمیگرده به سال 1960 وقتی که آقای خطک سفیر ما بود در افغانستان که یک نظری را در ارتباط با افغانستان با آقای ایوب خان سیاستمدار صدراعظم پاکستان ارائه کرد و در یک مرحله دیگه که سال 1965 است و 1991 است ما در ارتباط با افغانستان با یک سیاستگذاری پرداختیم و یک تغییر عمده پدید آمد. بنابراین موضوع فراتر از حوادث 20-25 سال اخیر است. Continue, please, sir.
Should I restart?
Yes, please.
Yeah, I mean, the second milestone was very important for us in Pakistan, because in our wars with India, 65 and 71, Afghanistan ensured that nothing happened on the Western Front. So we took every soldier, even the frontier corps, to the Eastern Front. And that gave us the idea that Pakistan was quite important, so important for Afghanistan that despite any problems in the past, they had a stake in our country. And we realized that if that be so, our policy has to ensure or has to be directed in a manner in which Afghanistan remains able to take its own decisions. And whenever it would take its own decision, it would be helpful. I can explain that a little later. But it changed. It changed after the Soviet invasion. And the Soviet invasion, yeah.
Okay. یک سیاست مبنایی دیگر در قبال افغانستان در سال 65 و 71 صورت گرفت. با توجه به یک سلسله تغییراتی که در مرز شرقی افغانستان به وجود آمد و یک سلسله تحولاتی که در ارتباط با پاکستان و هند، خب ما میخواستیم که در هر مقطع زمانی افغانستان خودش تصمیم گیرنده امورات خود باشد. در این مرحله بود که روس‌ها به افغانستان تجاوز کردند، شوروی ها به افغانستان مداخله کردند و جریانات یک سمت سوی دیگری گرفت. Yes, please.
After the invasion, one realized that if Afghanistan Kabul could not take its own decisions, and if the country was under occupation, the same border that they used to look after, it becomes a border of problem, a border of blood. Every falls here. So that gave rise to the first main policy for Pakistan. Some Afghans will resist foreign occupation, the others will collaborate with the foreign occupation, and our interest is just to help the people who are resisting the foreign occupation so that the country becomes, again in a position in which it takes its own decision, not anyone else's decision, not because of the Soviet and later on with the American occupation. This point has to be registered. That was the main pillar of Pakistan's policy, Afghanistan free of foreign military presence.
با توجه به مداخله روس‌ها در افغانستان، موضوع برخورد پاکستان در قبال افغانستان تغییر کرد به خاطر اینکه سیاست ما در این مسیر قرار گرفت که باید افغانستان دوباره در یک موقف قرار بگیره که بتونه که خودش سرنوشت خود تصمیم بگیره و دیگران برش تعیین سرنوشت نکنن. اینجا بود که مسئله ایستادگی در برابر شوروی ها مطرح شد و یک تعداد از نیروهای بیرونی هم در این راستا همکاری‌هایی کردند و ما هم خواستیم که به عنوان یک سیاست بسیار مبنایی که به مثابه یک زینه برای رفتن به یک فاصله بالای در نظر گرفتیم، این سیاست وضع کردیم که افغانستان دوباره در همون مسیر تصمیم گیری مستقلانه قرار بگیره. خب این واقعیت باید ثبت شود تا بسیار جریانات برای مبنا مورد تحلیل قرار بگیرن.
خب تشکر. اینکه نپذیرفتن که راجع به سیاست کلی پاکستان پاسخ بدهن نظریات خودشون، اگر بخوایم در رابطه با وضعیت روز یا حاکمیت طالبان امروز داشته باشیم، تحلیلشون چیست؟
Thank you. And it looks like you don't accept Pakistan's interference in Afghanistan. But anyway, would you please tell us about your comment in regards to current affairs in Afghanistan?
No, it's not the question of interference. It is about the region, about the friendly neighborhood. where if there are foreign military presence, and because of that, if there is going to be a fallout on the neighbors, most specifically on Pakistan, then it is not realistic to expect that we would not do it. Even other countries, remember Bangladesh war? When these refugees started going to Bangladesh, so India thought that they had to interfere. And it would happen even in Cuba, the Cuban Missile Crisis, or wherever you will see the neighborhood would matter to us. You can't just sit back and say, well, it's Afghanistan's, battle, let them fight it. Because one day from Oxus, they come to our borders, and then after that, it's going to be a threat to us also. Yeah.
موضوع مداخله نیست. مسئله ای است که یک مداخله و تجاوز صورت گرفته و این تاثیرات و پیامدهای به سرزمین ما داره و ما باید در قبال یک واقعیت اقدام کنیم، موضعی داشته باشیم و این منحصر به پاکستان نیست. هر کشوری وقتی که در همسایگیش همچون یک رویداد صورت میگیره از خود میخواهد که دفاع کنه. چنانچه که شما مسئله بحران بنگلادش بیان دارین که چطور باعث ایجاد پناهنده های بسیار زیاد شد و هندوستان ملزم شد که از خود عکس العمل نشون بده. به این شکل در ارتباط با بحران موشکی کیوبا که باعث شد که یک سلسله تحولات یا عکس العمل های صورت بگیره و به وجود بیاید. بنابراین قضیه با اطور یک دیدگاه مطرح میشه. Yes, please.
If I may just say that it was also, not only the effect here, the fact is that millions of Afghan refugees are also here. It is perfectly all right. One can treat them as, refugees, as honorable guests, etc. But the point is that once these things happen in the neighborhood, I do not know of any country, lately Ukraine, you must have seen, any country that remains unrelated. And that is where the assistance, it's not about the Taliban or the Mujahideen. Any tribesman, any people who would resist will have sympathy in Pakistan and will also get the support.
بخصوص اگر اجازه بدین باید من ایران تاکید کنم که میلیون‌ها نفر از پناهنده های افغانستان در پاکستان بوده به عنوان پناهنده، به عنوان دوست، هرچی که اونا رو صدا میکنه. بنابراین با توجه به این واقعیت هم ایجاب میکنه که ما به مسئله افغانستان فراتر از این نگاه کنیم که فقط موضوع دیگرها مثلا مداخله فکر کنن، بلکه همچون یک واقعیت ایجاب میکنه که ما به موضوع گیری بپردازیم.
خب اگر بپذیریم که آمدن شوروی، نیروهای شوروی یا تجاوز شوروی به افغانستان نظر به رقابت‌های جنگ سرد اساسیت پاکستان برانگیخت در حمایت از مخالفین حاکمیت خلق و پرچم، در 20 سال اخیر حدود هزاران مسجد مذهبی در پاکستان را ما شاهد هستیم و حاصل این مساجد امروز طالبان امروز است. در این ارتباط چی نظر دارد؟
If we understand that the role of Pakistan in the Cold War competition between superpowers, what would be your opinion in regards to the fact that thousands of mosques have been established, thousands of masajid have been established in Pakistan, and these mosques, these masjids train Taliban? What would you say about this fact?
You see, there are so many ways of looking at the madrasas. Madrasa is an old tradition in India, Pakistan, and I'm sure also in Afghanistan. This is where people go because the normal mainstream schools cannot take care of everyone. So they go there, they learn something. They are also, I think, accommodated and fed. So this is one way to provide education to the children. Coming back specifically to the Afghan refugees, do you know if there were not so many madrasas established, especially in our border areas, tribal areas, thousands of Afghan children would have gone without education. I have known these madrasas very well. Out of 12,000 in my days, there were 250 madrasas only, which were, preaching militancy, but not about Afghanistan, Pakistan, or America. This was about the Shia Sunni, the sectarian business. So that is the role of the madrasa. People who have gone and fought the Soviets and later on the Americans were not all madrasa graduates. People who did 9/11 were university graduates. So I think conveniently sometimes this blame is passed on to the madrasas. Madrasas may not teach rocket science, but they were not the nurturing grounds of militancy. That comes because of the overall environment. Yes.
از لحاظ تاریخی در شبه قاره هند و پاکستان مدارس دینی یکی از واقعیت ها بودن. همونطوری که در افغانستان هم این مدرسه ها یک قدامت تاریخی دارند. در این مدرسه ها بچه ها اطفال میرن درس میخوانند و مورد حمایت قرار میگیرن از لحاظ مسکن و اطعام. و در عین حال اینا در مناطقی که بودن در برگیرنده مکتب‌های شیعه و سنی بودن. وقتی که من در همون موقعیت خود قرار داشتم و مسئولیت داشتم، در حدود 1200 مدرسه بود و در این مدرسه هم نحوه مثلا آموزش اسلحه و تانک ساختن برای این شاگردان درس نمیدن. اونا درس میخوانند و باید داشته باشیم که در حادثه 11 سپتامبر فارغ التحصیل‌های دانشگاه‌ها بود، نه مدارس مذهبی. So you said 1000. Yes, go ahead please. بفرمایید.
تفکر انتحاری از کجا شکل گرفته؟
Where is the suicide mentality is coming from?
From the Middle East to start with. The suicide bombing in Afghanistan in our area was not known before that, but Hezbollah and so on and so forth, that experience taught people it's a very effective instrument of war. You see, people who resist, call them Mujahideen, Taliban or Hezbollah, they do not have tanks, guns and aircrafts. When they are pitched with the regular armies, they have only either their bare hands, their small little weapons, or their bodies. And that is where one very important military lesson, I'm a military man, came to being, that an individual was the best weapon system in the world. It can carry explosives, it can maneuver, it can take the scenes, and even if one man is lost, he takes about 20-30 of the others. So that is the background of the suicide bombing. It was not taught to them, but they learned about its effectiveness. All that they needed was, it continues in some areas, even in Pakistan, because they find that this for them is probably the best buyer available.
قدامت تاریخی حملات انتحاری برمیگرده به شرق میانه. چنانچه که گروه مثل حزب الله به این روش متوسل شد و دیگرها هم از اونا ایره یاد گرفتن و در جنگ ها بخصوص در برابر یک لشکر منظم و با دست خالی یا اسلحه ابتدایی یک کسی که میخواد که مبارزه یا جنگ کنه، او به بسیار مشکل میتونه که ایستادگی کنه. اینجاست که موضوع استفاده از پیکرش مطرح میشه و با توجه به این که من خودم یک فرد نظامی هستم و این دیدگاه را به عنوان یک تجربه مطرح میکنم، میگم که صرف نظر از تسلیحاتی که او میتونه که پیشرفته باشه و تاثیرات خاص خود داره، اما اگر یک فرد بخواد که از جان و جسم خود در راستای اما هدف خود استفاده کنه، این اسلحه بسیار تاثیرگذار است و این افرادی که مطرح شد این درس از اونجاها فرا گرفتن و به تأثیرش پی بردن.
کندک‌های انتحاری طالبان سوغات حزب الله لبنان است یا مدارس پاکستان؟
The suicide battalions and army, are they the product of Pakistan or Hezbollah?
No, I've just described the general phenomena as to why some people will resort to that. How they are motivated, where, how they will be prepared because of all the equipment that they need, the suicide jackets, etc. That comes much later. Once one has decided that this is our weapon, they will find it, whether they will find it in our areas or in Afghanistan or in Palestine. Anywhere they will be able to get hold of this material, to be able to explode it at the right time, to create that effect. And once again, I must say that once there is this so-called asymmetric war, unequal war, guerrilla war, the people who are resisting or who are fighting for their freedom, they do not have that type of equipment. And now if one were to say that it is all right on one side to bombard the villages and kill innocents, but this one man who goes and sacrifices his life for whatever cause he has, that is not allowed, that is bad, that is terrorism, etc., etc. These are those terminologies that are used. But one forgets how this war is fought. After all, if these people cannot go and hit the enemy or American air base, the next thing would be to probably go and hit a convoy, which is possible. Now, this is the way this war is fought. It is not on the terms laid down by the regular or by the bigger armies, but the nature of war.
Yes, آنچه که من گفتم یک پس منظر تاریخی نسبت به موضوع ارائه میکنم. مثلا این است که همچی یک درس فرا گرفته میشه، آموخته میشه، ولی در ارتباط با امکانات، تجهیزات، اسلحه، اون فردی که میخواد که به همچی یک عملیات بپردازه چی در داخل پاکستان یا منطقه افغانستان به دست میاره. فراموش نکنیم که موضوع در اینجا تقابل در برابر یک لشکر منظمی هست توسط یک افراد و جریاناتی که اینا به صورت گوریلایی میخواین که جنگ کنن، به صورت چریکی میخواین که جنگ کنن و اینجا یک جنگ نابرابر است. در اطور یک هنگامه، در اطور یک موقعیت، خب اینا که نمیتونن که خاموش باشن و دیگرها اونا رو مورد بمباران قرار بدن. چرا وقتی که نیروهای منظم یک کشور دارای امکانات نظامی پیشرفته به حملات بالای این گروه ها میپردازه، او به یک شکل دیگه تفسیر میشه، اما وقتی که اینا اقدام به دفاع میکنن اینا تحت عنوان یک سلسله اصطلاحات خاص محکوم میکنن. بنابراین اینجا موضوع دفاع مسئله فرق میکنه و باید کلیت این قضیه را در نظر داشت.
اگر بخوایم یک پاسخ بله یا نخیر ازشان بگیریم، سوال ما این بود که سوغات پاکستان است تایید میکنن یا تکذیب میکنن انتحاریایی که بیش از 10,000 شهروندای افغانستان کشت و امروز کشورهای همسایه از این انتحاریا نگرانی دارند، مثل آسیایی میانن، مثل ایران و جاهای دیگر.
If I receive a yes or no answer from you, would you please tell us the suicide bombers who have been coming primarily from Pakistan, are they the product of Pakistan or not? Because please keep in mind that these groups are threatening not only Afghanistan and kill thousands of people inside Afghanistan, but also they are threatening the neighboring countries such as Iran, Tajikistan, Minor Asia.
Yes or no is not going to be answer that. In our own case, the first suicide bombing took place in Pakistan in 2007 when our security forces killed some of the tribesmen and their children in Lal Masjid, just in case you have heard. This is a place in Islamabad. And once about 100 of them died, the tribesmen reacted and exploded. Some of them exploded themselves in front of the general headquarters, the army headquarters. They killed a 3-star general there. So that is how it happens. It doesn't really matter who prepares them. Point is that in this environment, some people will do it. And there's nothing that you, I, and anyone else can do about it, because for them, this is a revenge that had to be taken because they have lost their dear and near ones. In Pakistan too, many suicide bombings have taken place because people have, in certain actions by us, by our security forces, or by forces out from outside, people have lost their dear and near ones, and they go and explode themselves. I mean, this type of a mentality of the Pashtuns or the Afghans or the human beings, that needs to be understood instead of finding as to who is training them. Some of them are being trained to also carry out the same tactics against us, and we understand that because they have suffered because of this, war for the last 40, 50 years, especially the last 20 years, when the Americans were in Afghanistan and the drone attacks used to come and strike the tribal areas. So, cross-border, the borders in that case become absolutely irrelevant because there are people in Pakistan who would sympathize with the Afghans losing their lives. There are people in Pakistan who also sympathize with what happens in Kashmir, for example. So this is not only a national affair. This is a big regional affair that you wanted to talk about.
در همچو زمینه‌هایی نمیشه که پاسخ بله یا نه خیر گفت، بلکه موضوع فراتر از این است. باید داشته باشیم که اولین عملیات انتحاری در خود پاکستان در سال 2007 در لعل مسجد در اسلام آباد صورت گرفت که تعداد زیادی کشته شدند، صدها نفر، و حتی یک جنرال 3 ستاره هم کشته شد. موضوعی است که در این 4 دهه گذشته و خصوص 20 سال گذشته امی منطقه درگیر بسیاری از تشنجات و تقابل ها بوده و باید درک کنیم فشار را که بالای این گروه ها و اقوام و جریانات بوده و در بعض موارد یک تعداد از منسوبین این گروه ها، حالا چی از پاکستان یا افغانستان، دست به یک عمل تند و جدی میزنن و در نتیجه به یک سلسله اقدامات اینا متوسل میشن که حالا چی افغان باشن، پشتون باشن، از پاکستان باشن، که ممکن است که به جای باریکی کشانیده شود. و این یک واقعیتی است در ارتباط با افغانستان و پاکستان که مرز دیگر چندان او اهمیت قبلی خود نداره و این مرزها بسیاری وقتا در نوردیده میشه و عبور و مرور باعث یک سلسله تغییرات میشه، یک سلسله تاثیرات میشه. کما این که ما در مرز هند و کشمیر هم همچون یک واقعیت را مشاهده میکنیم.
تشکر. اگرچه که تلویحاً تایید کردم که ایجاد باریا پاکستان بوده و ما تقریبا مطمئن هستیم که همونطور که مردم افغانستان آتش گرفتن، دامن پاکستان هم این تاریخ خواهد گرفت. ما به عنوان همسایه راضی نیستیم که از ملت پاکستان و ملت افغانستان در این فرایند سیاسی و نظامی آسیب ببینند.
Thank you. You implied that the Taliban are created, the suicide operators are created by Pakistan. And as Afghans, we are not happy to see the backfires of Pakistan's policy in Afghanistan hunting Pakistan. We really look forward for better relationships, and that's about it.
You see, here is a problem here, and the problem is of perception, and we fit our own assessment according to whatever we want. Mujahideen were not created. If the Afghans were not, had a tradition of resisting foreigners, and that's an old tradition, they did it against the British, and Pakistan could not have created either the Taliban or the Mujahideen. Resistance starts, and one knows that if this resistance goes away, if it is not held, then Afghanistan will come under occupation. and will remain under occupation for a long time. And that, I've said that a couple of times before, I will say that again, that's an effect on Pakistan too. For example, let's understand that. Once the Soviets are in Afghanistan, or the Americans are in Afghanistan, on our eastern border is India, and on the western border we have another, very big part. So Pakistan falls into the jaws of a nutcracker. We're sandwiched. So one had to, but deliberately assure, with the help, the main role is played by the Afghans, not by the Pakistanis. If they were not going to resist, there was precious little that Pakistan could do. After all, they had the capacity of fighting off two superpowers within a matter of decades. And before I have to sometimes, in this interview, I have to also talk about another factor as to what happens after the foreign troops go back and the country is in some sort of a, turmoil, is broken, there is a remnants of civil war. What is at that time the role of Pakistan? I'll try to answer that whenever you ask me about it.
جواب به سوال شما بستگی به او برداشت و طرز تفکر یک فرد داره. شما یک نگرشی دارین، یک طرز تفکری دارین. باید این رو در نظر داشته باشیم که افغان‌ها از لحاظ سنتی و تاریخی یک تاریخ مقاومت و ایستادگی در برابر بیگانگان دارند و این یک واقعیت است که در امی تاریخ معاصر افغان‌ها در برابر دو ابرقدرت ایستادگی کردند و مجاهدین که توسط ما به وجود آمد و همینطور مسئله مداخلات یا یک سلسله تحرکات در مرزها و شمول مرز پاکستان و هندوستان ایجاب یک سلسله یعنی عکس العمل‌هایی را میکنه و فراموش نکنیم که وقتی که در افغانستان همچون رویدادهای اتفاق میفته خب این را به عنوان یک واقعیت بدانیم که در نظر داشته باشیم که در پاکستان هم تأثیراتی داره. نه تنها این مسئله بلکه باید به فردای هم اندیشید که وقتی که نیروهای خارجی مثلا افغانستان ترک میکنه چی نظام جاگزین میشه و تا چی حد امکان داره که کشور آبستن یا متأثر از بحران و تنش و بی‌ثباتی شود که خودم یک مسئله دیگه است. بنابراین در ارتباط با موضوع فردایی که چگونه میشه که یک مثلا نظری داشت و اقدام کرد هم میشه که نظر داد و میشه که ایران به عنوان یک موضوع مطرح نمود.
تشکر. از زمان ریاست شخص خودشان در سازمان افشای این مقدار صحبت کنم چه پالیسی های مثبت در حوزه هند و افغانستان داشتند؟
Thank you, sir. Would you please tell us about your positive steps taken by yourself when you were the head of ISI in regards to Afghanistan and India?
Great, thank you very much. This is the question that I would actually try to answer, which I consider more important than anything else. When I was the head of the ISI, the Soviets had gone back. And the mission in Pakistan was, now, after they have gone back, there are great divides within the country. There are many Mujahideen factions, and then the PDPA regime. What would be the best way to put the whole thing together so that Afghanistan is again one? I mean, politically it is one, but otherwise there were factions there. And that we found to be a very big challenge. How to bring various people together. And that's the reason that one reached out, not only those 7 parties, but people outside, including the King Zahir Shah, and I met Najib's intelligence chief. All was aimed at one thing, to just find out how various factions can be reconciled. Because that was the formula that created Afghanistan. Ahmad Shah Baba's formula, with all the stakes that people had within the country, that was the formula, and we wanted to do that. I'll come to the remaining part after that. Yeah.
از شما بسیار تشکر که همچین سوال را مطرح کردین و همچین سوال مورد پسند ما هم قرار داره. ما وقت موقف خود احراز کردم، به دست آوردم که روسا از افغانستان برآمده بودن و چالش بزرگی بود که چگونه گروه ها و جناح‌های مختلف مجاهدین با همدیگر متحد بسازیم تا افغانستان به صورت واحد بتونه که عرض اندام کنه. و در این راستا من نه تنها با رهبران مجاهدین ملاقات هایی داشتم، بلکه با رئیس استخبارات دولت دکتر نجیب هم ملاقات داشتم و تمامی تلاش ها در این راستا بود که بتونیم که یک افغانستان متحد ما ایجاد کنیم و باید در نظر داشته باشیم که از لحاظ سابقه تاریخی هم دغدغه و انگیزه احمد شاه بابا این بود که یک افغانستان متحد به وجود بیاید و خب همیشه که در این مورد بیشتر هم صحبت کنم.
راجع به هندوستان؟
What about in regards to India?
Yeah, I'll come to India very quickly, but before that, let me just finish this. And that is, there is no way in our calculations that Afghanistan can be at peace again unless the major factions are on board. And that was the effort. Lately, a few months ago, I attended the Dushanbe-Herat Security Dialogue. And there the message again was very clear. Whatever may have happened in the last 20 years has happened. The international community and all those things that their task is over. They have washed their hands. And the Afghans who are not now part of the main regime or mainstream in Afghanistan, for them, the only country, only power serious enough to also do another big reconciliatory move remains Pakistan. And once you have translated that, I'll talk about India.
بسیار خب، من عنقریب به موضوع هندوستان میپردازم، ولی اجازه بدید که این مسئله را تکمیل کنم و آن این است که ما در راستای ایجاد تفاهم یا اتحاد نظام تلاش میکنیم. چند روز پیش دوشنبه ملاقاتی داشتیم و در اونجا هم مسئله افغانستان دوباره مطرح شد و در این ارتباطات است که افغانستان یک جای است که در اونجا پاکستان میتونه که مهمترین و جدیترین نقش در راستای ایجاد یک آشتی و پیش بگیره و عملی بسازه و بنابراین هنوزم همچون یک دیدگاه و همچون یک نگرش وجود داره. با مسئله هندوستان هم میپردازیم.
خب بفهم ادامه بده.
Please continue.
Now about India?
Yes, please. درباره هندوستان؟
Yes, it is. For example, I think it turned out to be a very, critical period. And I was either very fortunate to be there or I had this challenge, at least to study this part. The policies are to be decided by the government, not by the head of the ISI. But on the other hand, at the end of 88, beginning of 89, another wave of Kashmiri uprising took place. After many, many years, we were quite surprised as to what has happened. And of course, we did not welcome this particular development because we had enough on the western borders at our hand. And so one was thinking that this is now, if it has happened, what do we do? And the task was, because of this big uprising, because people are angry, see if we can, establish some sort of, leverage on them so that the resistance is their natural right. They want to do it, but it should not lead to a bigger crisis between the two countries. And of course, as everyone can imagine, it's not very easy to ensure that the people who are fighting for their freedom in a particular area, that they will go by the dictates that we give, do this and do not do that, or calibrate their response to our needs. It was not very easy, but even then, for 10 years, the Kashmiri resistance was there. It outlasted all their assessments. And even after 10 years, they were, of course, put down by force. But that, again, for the last 20 years, their spark for freedom is on, and they have not given it up, as you must have heard about that. So that was the type of development taking place. And in some way, the task of, providing some support to the Kashmiri resistance, whether it is the humanitarian or other, is more difficult. Because in case of the, on the Western front, the ability for the Afghans to fight, the help that we got during the Soviet Union, that has always been missing. Because on the other side is the big power like India, and Pakistan hardly gets any support from outside. So it has to be the Kashmiris and some little, encouragement from us or some little support so that they can, at least sustain themselves. With that, the resistance in Kashmir had to go. And that is again, a very big task. And I have to admit that we have not always done very well because of the complications. But the credit goes to the Kashmiris that they have kept it on. And similarly, before one thinks about Pakistan's role, on the other side, as I keep saying, there's no way that a foreign power, even the mightiest powers in the world, cannot come to Afghanistan and subdue the resistance. So Pakistan could not have created a situation all by itself in a vacuum. So it is only a supporting role of those people who call it whatever they do. From our part, they fight for the, for the liberation of their country.
در قسمت هندوستان یک موضوع مهم مسئله کشمیر بوده. در ارتباط با مسئله کشمیر ISI تعیین کننده سیاست نیست، بلکه سیاست پاکستان در قبال همچون موضوعات خود حکومت ترتیب میده. و در سالهای 88 و 89 در کشمیر قیام‌های صورت گرفت و این قیام‌ها ادامه پیدا کرد، مقاومت صورت گرفت و در مراحل مورد حمله و سرکوب قرار گرفت و تانستند که اونا با همون ایستادگی خود ادامه بدن. و طبیعی است که نقش ما در کشمیر فرق داره با نقش ما در افغانستان، که در افغانستان کمک‌های وارد میشد و این در حالی است که در کشمیر ما فقط یک تشجیع میکردیم و زیاد نمیتونستیم که در ارتباط با حمایت از کشمیری ها نقش بازی کنیم و اونا خودشون بودن که به مقاومت میپرداختن و در نتیجه این مقاومت هم تا حال ادامه پیدا کرد. موضوعی است که وقتی که یک ابرقدرت وارد یک کشور میشه و میخواد که اتباع و مردم او جامعه را به تسلیم پذیری و انقیاد بکشانه، خب نمیشه توقعی از زیر داشت که او مردم تسلیم شوند.
تشکر. ایشان یک کتاب هم گویا در پس مأموریتشان نوشتن. کوتاه اگر راجع به کتاب هم صحبت کنم.
It looks like you have also written a book in regards to your post-mission. Would you please elaborate about that book?
About the book?
Yes. درباره کتاب؟
کتابی که خودشان نوشتن، بله.
The book which you have written yourself.
I've written 3 books, but I think the more famous has become, which I co-authored with a former Raw chief. Is that the book that people are you talking about?
ما 3 کتاب نشته کردیم. 3 کتاب نشته کردیم. یک کتاب را که با همکاری یکی از Indian intelligence chief. Yes, you wrote it collectively. Yes, sir. That's right. با همکاری رئیس استخبارات هندوستان مشترک نوشته کردیم.
بله بله، دقیقاً همون کتاب است.
Yes, that's right. Yes, exactly.
بله.
Yes, sir. Yes, that's what I mean.
That's the book. Otherwise, I'll just recommend to everyone who wants to, know about our policy on Afghanistan to read Pakistan Adrift. That's the main book. My experiences, my observation. The one that I have co-authored with the former Raw chief, for whatever reasons it happened, once one found out that it would be a very useful reference book for the students of India, Pakistan especially, but also the region, because Afghanistan is also covered, our foreign relations are also covered. And that book did create, some, commotion also. How could they write? But ultimately, people find out that it was such an important, such a useful book, that it is a must-read in so many strategic institutions. Two opinions, one from India, one from Pakistan. And reasonably informed opinions, if they are available in one book, in a manner in which people will take interest in reading it, that has turned out to be such a good idea. And I have to now, without saying that what a great idea that was, that it has become such a great idea that people think that it should be repeated. India, Pakistan, Afghanistan, it should be repeated. It should also be done at certain other levels, people writing joint books so that the reader has both the opinions available in one particular compendium. So that uproar was for a different political or, they were surprised that reason. But now for the last 2 years, people not only keep those books, they read it, and they also, I am so grateful to the Almighty that they do reach out to me and talk about it.
برای مسیح کتاب نشته کردیم یک کتاب و کتاب است در ارتباط با مسائل افغانستان که در مورد دیدگاه من درج است. این کتاب ما به صورت یک تلاش مشترک با مقام هندی در ارتباط با مسائل منطقه هندوستان، پاکستان و افغانستان و موضوعات از این قبیل نوشته کردیم. مسئله افغانستان هم تحت پوشش قرار داده و این کتاب با صورت یک تلاش مشترک نوشتیم و ایجاب میکنه که همچی یک تلاشای مشترک توسط مقامات دو کشور صورت بگیره تا یک تصویر بهتر ارائه شود. این کتاب یک کتاب است که باید خوانده شود و مردم کتاب نه تنها دارند بلکه ملزم میخوانند، درباره صحبت میکنند و من خدا را سپاسگزار هستم که این کتاب مورد بحث و گفتگو قرار گرفته و قرار میگیره و این تلاش به عنوان یک تلاش مشترک توسط دو نویسنده از دو کشور میتونه که جنبه معلوماتی زیادی داشته باشه که برای خواننده مفید باشه، مخصوصا کسانی که اونا موضوعات هند و پاکستان و منطقه را میخواین که به عنوان یک محصل، به عنوان یک شاگرد تعقیب کنند.
یک کشور باثبات و حکومت باثبات در افغانستان که از طریق انتخابات آزاد در واقع تحکیم شود چقدر مورد حمایت پاکستان است؟ اگر پاسخشان مثبت باشه رویکرد طالبان با انتخابات و مردم سالاری هماهنگ نیست. چرا از طالبان حمایت میکنن در کل؟
If there is a stable government in Afghanistan, what would be your response and the reaction to that? Also, in case your answer is yes, keeping in mind that the Taliban are not supporting election and they have a dictatorial regime, so how can you respond to this reality when you say yes to that question?
It's always a very difficult situation, especially if a country, has been at war for about 40 years. And already, because of there are so many divisions within Afghanistan, there are tribals, there are ethnic, there are sectarian, there are topographical and geographical ones, there are historical division. And on top of that, after any invasion, you have another important division that is created, people who resisted and the others who collaborated. Now, if you consider all of that, after that you come to the conclusion that anyone, whether the Taliban or any other government, if it was to come into being, it has a very big task. Our recommendation to our government has been, look, if now they are there and if they have, after 20 years gotten back to the power, then it's not up to us to tell them, because Afghans are not very happy if they are forced to do that. We simply have to ask them, you have a big challenge. Is there anything that we should do to help you? Now, that is at the government level. At the people level, as I probably had mentioned earlier, with so many other organizations having packed up and gone, and so many countries gone, right now, any outsider who is there and still doing something, we should be grateful to them. But I have to say that the leading charity organizations working in Afghanistan are Pakistanis, NGOs, and about 5,000 students today are studying in Pakistani institutions. And we do believe that this number should also be increased, because every help that the Afghans can get, people of Afghanistan, the government, there is nothing that anyone could do, but the people of Afghanistan need so much of help. And as for the Taliban are concerned, now to tell them, look, you have to listen to either America, France, or Pakistan, that would be wrong. They have to, now, since they are in charge, they will take their own decision. And if they don't take good decisions, they will suffer.
Okay. بله، پاسخ به این پرسش مشکل است و این را ما میخواییم که یادآوری کنیم که افغان ها برشان این خوشایند نیست که برشان بگوییم که شما چی کاری انجام بدین، بلکه ما برشان میگیم که شما با چالش های مواجه هستین و ما چگونه میتونیم که در این راستا مفید واقع شویم، چگونه میتونیم که خدمت کنیم. این رو باید در نظر داشته باشیم که بیشتر از مؤسسات خیریه از پاکستان هستند که در افغانستان خدمت میکنند. 5,000 محصل افغانستان در پاکستان تحصیل میکنند. 5,000 Afghan students are studying in Pakistan. You said, sir? 5,000? You said 5,000 Afghan
5,000 students right now, right? 5,000 right now. It's not very large number, but it's still something. And one keeps saying, hoping that there would be more, because that is what we need.
بله، 5,000 محصل افغانی یا از افغانستان در پاکستان تحصیل میکنند. بله، این یک رقم بسیار بالای نیست، ولی خب میتونه که افزایش پیدا کنه و در نتیجه ما نمیتونیم که برای افغان ها بگیم که شما باید اینی سیاست را در پیش بگیرین. این برای افغان ها خوشایند نیست، بلکه ازشون پرسان میکنیم که چی چالش وجود داره که ما در این مورد بتونیم اگر یک کاری انجام بدیم.
ما پاسخ خود نگرفتم. عرض شد یک حکومتی که برای مردم احترام قائل نیست چرا حمایت میکنن؟
I didn't get my answer. The question is, why do you support a government which does not approve a public vote and public support?
Oh, that's the government that Kabul has now. So there is no, I mean, usually if those are people in charge and there is no big opposition within the country, they may not be very popular, but if there is no opposition, with whom does one deal right now? It's an official level of dealing is with the Taliban regime. And as far as the other part is concerned, it continues with the people. So it's not supporting the government. In fact, supporting the government would have been there if we had gone all out, recognized it. But again, I think this is one of those rare good things that have happened, that Pakistan, along with countries like Iran, China, Central Asian countries, Turkey, they've decided that we'll try and follow and coordinate our policies on recognition and certain kind of thing. If it was left to me, I would have said Afghanistan needs every support. So why hold back recognition? But this is now a multinational decision of the neighbors, all the neighbors who have stake in Afghanistan, that we will try and coordinate our policies. There's not much coordination that has taken place, that I know, but at least that's the decision.
خب این یک واقعیت است دیگه که در افغانستان فعلا طالبان هستند و یک گروه مخالف مطرح و جدی هم نیست، ولی در عین حال کشورهای منطقه به شمول ایران، ترکیه، چین و کشورهای آسیای میانه and Russians as well. Yes, sir. Russians as well. روسا در صدد ایجاد هماهنگی‌های هستند که در ارتباط با افغانستان نتایجی را به بار بیاره و در نتیجه این تلاش‌ها بین این کشورها و کابل ادامه داره و ببینیم که چی نتایجی به بار میاره.
جناب آقای حسینی، به عنوان یک شهروند افغانستانی، من شما یک صحبت‌هایی هم داشتیم. خود شما چه سوال جدی دارید که از جناب درانی بپرسید؟ ضمن که بحث واخان رو میخواستیم بپرسیم که دیدگاه استراتژی پاکستان راجع به دهلیز واخان چیست؟ شما اگر سوال کلیدی دارید که تا این لحظه مطرح نشده، میتونید ابتدا فارسی با هموطنان عزیز ما مطرح کنید و از آقای درانی بپرسید.
Mr. Hosseini, the question is addressed to me, sir. If you have any question, please raise it, especially a key question, so that it can be also put forward for our Persian audience, so they are also aware of the question and answer. Sir, Pakistan was established on the basis of Islam. But unfortunately, the system in Pakistan is primarily not Islamic. It is very un-Islamic in the way that it is primarily dominated by the Americans. And there are facts and evidence to support this claim. For instance, the dismissal of Imran Khan, who is an independent politician, and by so many statistics and research, Pakistan was progressing under Imran Khan, but he was dismissed through certain foreign interference. The military coup against Bhutto was also related to certain foreign powers. Not only that, even Mr. Ishaq Gilani said that I was asked to leave Pakistan by the governor of the Soba Sarhad, I think, in an interview with Cactus. But one American diplomat interfered and changed that expulsion policy. All these facts show that the Americans have a very upper hand and dominance over a Muslim country, which was established on the basis of Islam, according to a very great and popular philosopher, Allama Iqbal. This is contrary to his teachings. Not only this, according to one perspective, Nasirullah Babur belongs to Qadiani sect, and he was behind Gulbuddin Hekmatyar and the Taliban. And how can you solve this conflict of reliance on American influence and establishing intelligence service which is deeply influenced by westernized secularist people who are, even according to Western commentators, they are brown in color and British in mentality. But they use very radical religious groups such as Taliban. And this is a contradiction to the teachings of Allama Iqbal and the basis of the Pakistan, which was Islam. And I would like, the question is, how do you solve this contradiction? How do you prove that Pakistan is an independent state of American dominance?
I think this is a very comprehensive question. If you have time, I'll try and answer. I have no problem doing that.
Please go ahead. Thank you. Please.
And the answer is...
Yes, please go ahead.
And the answer is that yes, within the country in the 75 years, we have committed some huge mistakes. Whether it was on the basis of Islam or to provide a haven to Muslims is a debate that has also gone on. Whether how to Islamize, our constitution is another discussion. But I do concede that within the country, military coups and bad administration, etc., has happened, and for that, Pakistan alone is responsible. But there is a very big misconception, and I have a problem fighting that perception. In fact, that fight is even more difficult than trying to explain our Afghan policy, and that is, no, we did seek help because of the unequilibrium or the lack of balance between India and Pakistan, and that help was useful to an extent. But the charge that we have followed the American dictates, I can give you certain examples in which we have actually acted against what the Americans have said. We started our relations with China in the 60s against their desire. We carried out our nuclear program, even though they did not like it. When the Iranian Revolution took place and, Afghanistan was on, the Soviets were there, and the Americans were our great allies. They asked us to sue a relationship with Iran. We did not. Till today, in Washington, Iranian interests are served by the Pakistani mission. And the last 20 years is a very big example as to what Pakistan decided to do against the desires, the wishes, and the interests of the Americans. So this is a myth that has continued because I think some of our people actually have probably played that out in a manner because their interest may be there, their children may be there. But the American never changed the policy that Pakistan took. And I'm a personal witness to many of these. Now, if you are just quickly, I don't think this is very relevant as to what happened with Imran Khan. It was an internal development. No outsider had anything to do with that. It was again a collateral damage of military interference in politics. And I'm so happy that once last year the regime was changed, more than Imran Khan and anyone else, people have also turned their guns towards the army that you have interfered so many times. Why the hell can't you simply go back to barracks and do your job? Now, this is a good development that has taken place. And the military's responsibility in the chaos in Pakistan, I have to concede because it has been a very important, very powerful factor there. And so there is no way that I'm going to, absolve my own institution from the responsibility. But the American factor that I have to strongly disagree, it did not happen. We defied it most of the time. In fact, the Americans at some times have believed that we were taking money from them and not playing their interest. I said, yes. My only regret is we should have taken more money and done less for you. But that is something that was also recorded in Oxford, if you remember, if those people who have seen that Oxford program, Mehdi Hassan, head-to-head. Yeah. I've done that. I said, we should take more money and do less because their interests and ours in the region are not the same. But that is trying. I know that's the best that I can try and answer this about the question regarding the American influence. And there are many more examples, but I'm not sure if you would be interested in all of them.
سوالی که شما کردین یک سوال جامع است و باید این را بپذیریم که در گذشته خطاهای صورت گرفته. در 75 سالی که قدامت سیاسی تأسیس پاکستان به او برمیگرده، اشتباهات جدی به وقوع پیوسته، ولی چند نکته دیگر هم باید در نظر داشت. در اینجا یک سوء تفاهم به وجود آمده که من میخوایم که به او بپردازم و اویی است که آیا پاکستان کلاً تحت تاثیر سیاست‌های خارجی قرار دارد یا ای که نخیر اوتو نیست. مسئله ای است که ما در بسا موارد بوده که در برابر سیاست‌های امریکا موضع گرفتیم. مثلا در قسمت ایجاد ارتباط با چین ما مستقلانه عمل کردیم. در ارتباط با تعقیب برنامه انرژی هسته‌ای ما برخلاف امریکایی‌ها دانستیم که در این راستا گام بگذاریم و به موفقیت هم دست یافتیم. در ارتباط با انقلاب اسلامی ایران که امریکا با اون مشکل داشته، ما نظری داشتیم که با امریکایی‌ها منطبق نبوده و ایجگاه و نظر امریکایی‌ها در این رابطه ما کارنش نکردیم. حتی در حال حاضر هم سفارت ما در واشنگتن مجری منافع ایران در ارتباط با موضوعات ایران در واشنگتن هستند. بنابراین این یک افسانه است که پاکستان تحت سیطره امریکا یا کشور خارجی قرار دارد. به خاطر اینکه در بسا موارد ما تونستیم که مستقلانه عمل کنیم. بله بعضی از افراد در جامعه ما خب طور دیگه عمل کردن، ولی او حاکی از کل قضیه و تصویر واقعیت پاکستان نیست. در مصاحبه که ما با مهدی حسن خبرنگار الجزیره داشتم در آکسفورد، در اونجا هم این مسائل مطرح شد و ما جوابای ارائه کردم و این مسئله را یعنی نمیپذیریم که پاکستان تحت سیطره یک نیروی خارجی باشه. در ارتباط با عمران خان خب این موضوع هم برمیگرده به یک مسئله داخلی پاکستان و این مسئله مشکل زا بوده. مسئله مشکلی که با وجود آمد در ارتباط با یک سلسله سیاست ها، حتی یک تعداد با ما تماس گرفتن که به عنوان نیروی نظامی خود نیروی نظامی پاکستان در این مورد اقدام کنه به خاطر از اینکه خب مشکلاتی در کشور ایجاد شد تا سرانجام ایشان از قدرت کنار گذاشته شد و در نتیجه همچی یک واقعیت صورت گرفت. اگر خواسته باشین ما در ارتباط با این موضوعات بیشتر میتونم که توضیح بدم و فعلا به همینجا اکتفا میکنم.
جناب اثر درانی 82 سال دارن، خسته نشدن از سوالات ما؟
Mr. Durrani, you're 80 years old. Aren't you tired?
I'm all right. I'm 82, all right. But now, because of my commitment, this is the only commitment that's left. I have to continue working for FPAC. I'm an FPAC man. And my family came from that area 150 years ago from Kandahar, or close to west of Kandahar. So there is a commitment, a personal, a traditional commitment to that country. And because of that, I'm not tired at all. And I just wanted to add one thing on that money business. Do you know in the last 15 years, the Taliban got more money from the Americans and the NATO than Pakistan did? If people do not know, then they should go and find out. Security in the NATO convoys was being provided by the Taliban against about 100. So this is how the money plays a role. Not because if you pay someone and they will do their task, you have to sometimes pay the money because your survival may depend upon that. Sorry, I had to intervene that, but I'm prepared to take on the next question. No, I'm not tired.
So who took the more money? The Taliban took more money?
More money? Yes. More than $500 billion a year they were getting from NATO on their cut and the opium development work and security of the convoys.
نه خیر، من خسته نشدیم و ما به تعهدی که سپرده منظم وفادار هستم. ما به سرزمین افغانستان تعلق دارم به خاطر از اینکه 150 سال قبل پدران ما از سمت غرب کنر مهاجرت کردند و در نتیجه خب علاقمندی ما وجود داره. البته در ارتباط با سوال قبلی میخوایم ایران بگویم که طالبا بیشتر پول دریافت کردن از امریکایی‌ها و این را باید در نظر داشت در ارتباط با مسائل امنیتی و موضوعات از این قبیل. قبلا هم گفتند که یکی از نشانه های دیگر استقلال پاکستان این بوده که پاکستان در قبال کمک هایی که از امریکا دریافت میکرد در بسا موارد خب امریکایی ها میگفتن که شما کاملا آنچه که ما میخواهیم برای مبنا حرکت نمیکنید، ولی ما برایشان میگفتیم که ما میخواهیم که شما کمک هایتون بیافزایید و از ما هم کمتر این انتظار داشته باشین که ما مطابق چیزی که شما میگین عمل کنیم، که هم به عنوان یکی از نمونه های دیگر مستقل بودن ما میتونه که مطرح شود. ولی من هنوز میتونم که سوال شما رو جواب بدم و شما میشه که ادامه بدین این گفتگو را.
تشکر. اگر پاکستان 10 سال از کشورهای خارجی کمک نگیره ادامه حیات میتونه بده؟
Thank you. If Pakistan doesn't receive assistance from Western countries for the next 10 years, is it able to survive?
I think that's a great question. I have to say that we messed up very, very big way. That's true. I've already said that was our fault. Our privileged classes have, enjoyed taking that money and throwing it away. They did not spend on the people. And because of that, we have that problem. But your question is important. people like me are a little, let's say, unconventional in our approach. I still believe that even today, if you said no to all Western aid, we would have problem for a couple of years and then we will recover, because then we will show that we can actually, by putting more trust on our people, we can generate better standard of living for the masses. 80 to 90% people would improve. Yes, the luxuries of certain people will suffer. And I'll be very happy for that also, because these are the people who have to be punished. But essentially, I do believe that if there are any technical, problems in getting money and paying money, that may be different. But for the best course for Pakistan still remains, even now, to say no to foreign aid. We can get certain loans from some places with the promise to repay them, not aid. But aid is like a toxin. It goes there, and after that, you do not get out of there. 23 times we have gone to IMF. So that, I said, is something that I can feel sorry, ashamed, and apologize to, especially to our own people.
بله، باید بگویم که این بسیار جای تأسف است که همچین یک وضعیتی وجود داره که ما نمیتونیم که این وضعیت ادامه بدیم و این تأسف بار است، این دردناک است و کاش که یعنی باید سیاستگذاری ها در این راستا قرار بگیره که قرضه بگیریم، که قرضه را پس بپردازیم، ولی نه که صرفا مساعدت و کمک دریافت کنیم که اون تاثیرات منفی بسیار مسموم و زهرناک بر ذهن ما هم داشته باشه که همیشه باید گیرنده کمک ها باشیم، بلکه میشه که قرض گرفت و قرض هم پرداخت. بله، اگر کمک ها قطع شود تا یک مقطع مشکلات جدی به وجود می آید، اما خب پاکستان این توانایی را داره که دوباره سر پای خود بیسته و برای توده ها بتونه که یک سطح زندگی بهتر را فراهم کنه. بله، آنانی که در تجملات زندگی میکنند، خب اونا در همچین یک وضعیت ممکن است که یک اندازه خساره ببینند، اما خب ما با خساره‌مندی طبقه تجمل پرستی که در اطور یک وضعیت ممکن است که متضرر شوند اعتنایی نمیکنم، بلکه بیشتر مسئله مردم است و در ارتباط با مردم باید فکر کرد و باید گفت که وضعیت که مطرح شد آکی از یعنی یک وضعیت بسیار تأسف‌بار، شرمناک و دردناک است.
تشکر. با توجه به اینکه گفتم ریشه افغان دارن و از قندهار یا کنر هستن، احتمالاً 150 سال پیش خدمت داره، مهاجرتشون به اون طرف. آخرین دیدارشون با مقامات طالبان کی بوده و خود افغانستان چقدر دوست دارن و آخرین سفرشون کی بوده؟
Thank you. As you mentioned, I think you said you belong to the Kandahar or Konar part of Afghanistan. And my question is, in the last meeting which you had with the Taliban, what were the discussions and how is your affection towards Afghanistan? And when was the last time you visited Afghanistan?
Never met the Taliban. My only contacts in Afghanistan have remained in those days with the Mujahideen parties here in Pakistan. And later on, whenever I have gone to Afghanistan, I've only met, people who were formerly with these Mujahideen, the Karzais and Abdullah, Maulvi Sayaf, and all these people who belong to that group who resisted the Soviets. I mean, they are the people whom I know. Now they are on the Kabul side, they are against the Taliban. On the Taliban side, I know no one. But I can at least tell you one thing about this. And that is that I do not know what they are up to and how they will manage it. It's a difficult one. But I'm just taking you to my, when I became free for the first time to write about these things publicly, at the end of 97, and the Taliban were at that time ruling Afghanistan the first time, I did write for the news here in Islamabad, and I said, this is a temporary phenomenon because essentially the Taliban do not belong to that country's culture, which is, more liberal, which is more decentralized. But all the Afghans are waiting for the Taliban to just reunite the country, take back that area which is with the Northern Alliance. And once the country becomes one, it would start the decline of the Taliban. And my argument was, no, they do not. Culturally, politically, historically, they do not belong. Mullah fights, but the rule is for someone else. This is on record of end of 97, the last 3 days. My analysis of what Afghanistan had appeared there. I still believe that right now they have strengthened themselves because of the very prolonged resistance. People do not have any alternative, and so they may not quickly fade away. But this type of rule of the Taliban over a country like Afghanistan, which is decentralized, which consists of different areas and so on, is not going to work out very well for them. Slowly and gradually, their power will erode. I do not know how long it will take, whether there would be resistance or civil war. About that, I will not make any forecast. But this is the type of government that cannot remain in charge for very long.
ما از گذشته ها ملاقات و ارتباط با مجاهدین کرزی، عبدالله و مولوی سیاف داشتیم و در بین طالبا چندان ارتباط یا شناسایی یا افراد شناخته شده ندارم، اما این رو میفهمم که طالبا با واقعیت‌های فرهنگی و تاریخی افغانستان مطابقت ندارند، برای اینکه افغان‌ها مردم لیبرال هستند و در افغانستان بیشتر یک نظام غیر متمرکز بوده و فعلا که اینا بر سر قدرت هستند یک علتش این بوده که با توجه به اینکه افغانستان دستخوش جنگ‌های شد، این ملاها خواستند که وارد قضیه افغانستان شوند تا مملکت متحد بسازند و از دست نیروهای مثل ائتلاف شمال خارج کنند تا مملکت به یک یعنی اتحاد برسند. ولی این حاکمیت نمیتونه که دوام بیاره و به مرور زمان این حاکمیت ریزش خواهد داشت، برای اینکه با فرهنگ مردم افغانستان مطابقت ندارند و بلکه یک نظام دیگه به وجود خواهد آمد. و این دیدگاه من از سال 1987 بوده که من همچین یک موضعی داشتم و تا حال هم دارم. 3 روز قبل هم این مطرح کردیم که طالبان نمیتونن که در افغانستان باقی بمانند و اینا کنار خواهند رفت و یک نظام غیر متمرکز که جنبه شمولیت فراگیر داشته باشه در افغانستان با وجود خواهد آمد.
آخرین سفرشان در افغانستان کی بود؟
When was your last trip to Afghanistan?
Sorry?
When was your last trip to Afghanistan?
Oh, yeah, 2016, probably, Iraq Security Dialogue. And that is the time when we also met. I mean, President Karzai was already out, but we went and called on him. My group was invited there. 2016, I think it was 2016, true.
من فکر میکنم که 2016 بود. اوکی، ما رفتیم با یک گروه و اونجا ملاقات‌های در ارتباط با مسائل امنیتی داشتیم و در اون مرحله رئیس جمهور کرزی خارج بود ولی خب از ما دعوت شد. And you also went in 2002?
2006 was the first time, and that was
Yes.
because, I was invited by the president who had known me, Karzai, from that time. And after that, I've gone there many times. But on the Afghan security dialogue, I mean, I've just read the Iraq security dialogue I attended a few months ago in Dushanbe. But before that, the last meeting was there where we called on the president and we met so many others too. But this is the period between 2006 and 2016. These 10 years, I've had a number of trips there, met sometime for the security dialogue, sometime for a BBC interview, sometime on our own because of the track 2 that I was involved in.
So between 2006 and 2016, you had so many trips inside Afghanistan.
That's right. Very
بین
good.
2006
Sorry?
go ahead. Yeah, between 2006 and 2016, you had so many trips inside Afghanistan for security dialogue with Afghan side.
For meeting people, because I've known so many of them. I've just taken a few names. I've known more. For attending the security dialogue. Track 2 meetings took place, and a couple of times one went on my own just to, keep myself up to date with the developments.
بله، بین سالهای 2006 و 2016 من سفرهای متعددی به افغانستان داشتم و این سفرها در ارتباط با مسائل امنیتی بین دو کشور بود که ملاقات‌های صورت می‌گرفت و تعداد نام گرفتم و تعداد دیگه را ضرورت نیست که نام بگیرم و این ملاقات‌ها ادامه داشت در ارتباط با امورات امنیتی بین دو کشور.
تشکر. با توجه به نفوذی که در آیسای یا به عنوان یک جنرال نظامی در فوج و احتمالاً در حکومت پاکستان دارن و گفتن یک ریشه افغانی یا درانی هم دارن در افغانستان، در حال حاضر چه کمک میتونن به مردم افغانستان؟
As a former general who has influenced inside military establishment and government, what role, positive role, can you play in regards to Afghanistan issue? چی رول مثبت میتونن که در افغانستان ایفا کنن؟ Yes, sir.
I have, probably expressed, my own assessment as to what we can do. Besides the fact that, of course, there are millions here, you must look after them. And sometimes if we haven't looked after them, I feel sorry. The resistance, support to resistance, I've already talked about. But more than everything else is, and that is where my statement in Dushanbe was also broadcast in Kabul very quickly, and I believe some people sent the message. I said, our job of all of outsiders is, it's not about whom you like or dislike. All factions in Afghanistan, tribals or sectarian or ethnic, it does not matter. All factions who have a role to play, bring them together, and that formula that I have already talked about that created Afghanistan, Ahmad Baba's formula, everyone on board. By all means, do carry out your business in your own area according to your own tradition. But this is one country, and when the need be, we will unite. Now, that is the country, that is the formula for Afghanistan, and one tries to do one's best to do it, whatever one. For lately, since you have asked, what is the latest one? After a return from Dushanbe, this is my suggestion to these people. People, the diaspora outside and those people outside, they are also Afghans, and they also have to be brought back in the mainstream. Try and find out some way to reconciliate these people with the people in Afghanistan, the Taliban, and the other. That is the job we have. That's a very big challenge. It's not easy. It's not easy because of the Afghans themselves, because it's so difficult. In my days, it was much simpler. 7 parties, and we had a problem, making them agree on anything. But now it's even more complex, but the challenge is that much bigger, and the stake is that much bigger. And that is the one that we say, for us, the Taliban and the people outside are, as far as Afghanistan is concerned, have equal value, and it is our job, and try and get them here. If they come here, we should hold conferences with the diaspora. We should also get the Taliban here so that we can continue to play that particular role, mediatory role. And someone said, how? And I said, if I understand the Afghans to any extent, we'll have to find out 5, 10 such people who have standing, who have respect in all these factions, who have, that stature where no faction will say no to them. And I miss some of my old friends like the Mujaddidi and like Rubani, because those are the people who did have that respect, that such people have to be found out so that not the governments, but these individuals, preferably Afghans, should go around and bring the tribesmen together. That's the Afghan way that I understand.
ما این را میخوایم تاکید کنم که باید همون سیاست را که درانی احمد شاه بابا داشت اما باید دوباره بازنگری شود و به مرحله اجرا گذاشته شود. این بدون معناست که اقوام، گروه ها و نژادهای مختلف در افغانستان متحد یک جا باشند و در مناطق خود بر اساس سنت و فرهنگ خود عمل کنند و ولی تحت یک درفش واحد، یک افغانستان واحد. این موضوع را، این نظر را من در دوشنبه هم مطرح کردم و در اینجا هم میخوایم که تاکید کنم که باید در افغانستان گروه های مختلف جمع شوند و اینا در ارتباط با یک افغانستان واحد وارد اقدام شوند. موضوع دیگه واقعیت وجود افغان های خارج از افغانستان است. اونا هم یک بخش از واقعیت های افغانستان هستند و باید مد نظر قرار بگیرند و به یعنی گروه اصلی یا امو مینستریم بپیوندند و این جریان غالبی که در افغانستان وجود داره به نحو به تفاهم برسه و در نتیجه این احزاب، گروه ها، اقوام بتونن که افغانستان واحد شکل بدن. در زمانی که ما در مرحله بعد از خروج روس‌ها میخواستیم که به یک ایجاد هماهنگی بین گروه های مجاهدین اتحاد افغانه بپردازیم، چالش اینقدر شدید نبود. موضوع به تناسب وضع فعلی ساده بود که با اونا مذاکره میکردیم و مشوره یا صحبت و در نتیجه مسئله به این شکل بسیار جدی و چالش برانگیز نبود. این در حالی است که در وضع فعلی نه تنها چالش ها بسیار چالش های بزرگی هست، بلکه شرکای قضیه افغانستان و آنانی که دخیل هستند هم به نحو دیگه وجود دارند و در نتیجه ایجاد یک توافق هم مشکل میشه، ولی خب راه حل داره و فرمولی را که ما پیشنهاد کردیم و بنده با او معتقد هستم امی است که میشه که یک افغانستان واحد داشت بر اساس سنت ها و رسم و رواج ها. هر قسمت افغانستان خودش مستقلانه عمل کنه ولی یک کشور واحد بوده باشه. و البته ما در زمان مثلا استاد ربانی و بعضی از شخصیت‌های دیگر با اونا ملاقات‌هایی داشتم، صحبت‌هایی داشتم و همچین مسائل رو مطرح می‌کردیم و این مسائل دیدگاه ما از همچین یک کیفیت برخوردار است.
بسیار تشکر. 90 دقیقه حدوداً طول کشید صحبت ما. باید بیشتر مهمان خسته نکنیم اگرچه پرسش‌ها زیاد است. خود شما جناب حسینی نکته دارید که به ایشان تذکر بدید یا خاطر نشان بدید؟
Yes, again, Mr. ضرابی asked me to raise question. First, would you please repeat your points from the part when you were talking about Professor Rabbani? That's one point, one question. The other question is, it's not ideal for a Muslim country, and for that matter, even for civilized countries of Europe, like in the European Union, there is a clause, as far as I know, in their constitution, that one of the conditions for being a member of European Union is that the military shouldn't have upper hand in a country. So if the military is the final decision makers, they are disqualified to be a member. Islamically also, if we also talk on the basis of Islam, Islam is a religion which is primarily a civil government advocate, and the military men are valuable, they're respectable, but they shouldn't be the final decision makers. I don't want to go into details from jurisprudence and theoretical perspective, but what I say is this kind of military supremacy in Pakistan has cost this country a very heavy price. And the outcome, of course, in some ways it is good, no doubt, but in a final conclusion, Pakistan is not in ideal place as it should be, with all it is very capable people, with great men and women, as I mentioned, one of them, Allama Iqbal, and great writers like Ustad Maududi. And this country is in different ways suffering from different problems. And it is going to have a default problem in regards to financial crisis if there's not enough changes in the policies. My question in regards to this situation is, don't you think that the military should think again in regards to be there as a major power, but not act as a final decision maker?
I absolutely agree with that. It is not for the military to take the final decision. And you're right, I think because of all the supremacy of one institution over the others, we have suffered very often. If you're talking about this, I mean, leave aside the European Union, I mean, I remember one incident from our own history where Khalid bin Walid, the most successful military commander, and at some time, the Caliph Umar thought that this would create a bad tradition. People would say that without Khalid, we cannot win. So he removed him. And we became an ordinary soldier. So that is the tradition that we have. But we have learned at a great cost to ourselves that this type of arrangement was not going to help. Because I'm not in the business of, blaming people. I just want to analyze as to why it happened. And there are historical reasons. There are also reasons of the creation. And there are also deficiency reasons, or other institutions may have suffered from deficit. But for me, the most important thing was that the military on both the fronts did ask the civilian government. I remember in my time, on Afghanistan, we asked Benazir Bhutto. Now, Soviets are gone, the policy has to be made by you and you own it. And similarly, when Nawaz Sharif was the prime minister, we said, what should be our Kashmir policy? And from there, from these two prime ministers at different time, we did not get that direction. We did not. So this is just that small little, it's not an excuse, it's not an argument for military supervision, that at times, even though you may want the others to take that decision, you find that there is none. That still does not mean that I'm justifying the military's larger than life role. Not only because we have suffered, because of the reasons that we have said, and there is also the nature of things. The military has its own way of doing things, and the national polity, or otherwise we have to take the social community, they do not follow that rule. Military is in the habit of doing black and white and so on. And in the civil life, there are so many shades of gray, there are so many things that have to be taken care of. It cannot be a regimental order. So all these deficiencies are known. But even then, if we have done that every 5-10 years, or we have interfered, the fault is, and I already considered that, not only now. I said, we have to take responsibility. And what has happened last year, in which now people have started saying, you, the army, you're responsible and you better keep out of it. I consider that as a good development. But I essentially agree with whatever you were trying to say.
با آن چیزی که شما گفتین من موافق هستم و نباید اینطور باشه و اتفاقا در پاکستان اونطور نیست که ملیتری یا نیروی نظامی تصمیم گیرنده نهایی باشه. و بعض وقتا واقعیت های دیگه هم هست. مثلا در دوره بینظیر بوتو و در دوره نواز شریف ما در قبال مسئله پشتون، مسئله کشمیر، از این دو صدر اعظم یعنی نظر خواستیم، با اونا اینطور یک نظر دقیق ندادن و بنابراین در بحث و موارد خود وزارت دفاع یا خود نهاد نظامی ملزم میشه که وارد عرصه شود. ولی در کل گپای شما درست است. Sir, what do you think about the fact that General Aslam Beg once said that the Taliban have been created to encircle Iran? This is one question. And the other question,
Aslam Beg, that
General
Aslam Beg-
Aslam Beg, I read in a source that General Aslam Beg said that the Taliban were created to encircle Iran.
It's nonsense. I don't know who said that. Beg has made many, careless statements, but this one he never made. It's wrong.
Okay.
It's wrong.
That's fine. Okay.
I know that he never said that. He may be foolish, but not that of a yeah.
I read it in Crescent International, published in Canada, a very credentialed newspaper, which interestingly, the editor-in-chief is Mr. Zafar Bangash, which is from, Pakistan originally. He also said that in the beginning, the plan to establish the Taliban for the first time, the plan to establish and to create Taliban was made in Islamabad by British ambassador, according to this very important news magazine. But my other question is, you talked about the role of military men in politics. In the meantime, in history, one of the very famous and popular military men who was also very popular at his time and even still in the West, Sultan Salahuddin Ayyubi, who was able to, as you know better, free Jerusalem. And we are still facing that problem. Interestingly, although Sultan Salahuddin was a military man, a commander, but more importantly, he was a jurist. He was an Islamic scholar. By this combination of Islamic values and military expertise, a politician, and for that matter, better if he is a military man, provided he is primarily influenced by those Islamic values, like in his case, he was a winner of the war, and even in the West, he is respected, he is glorified. Once upon a time, he was sick and he asked for alcohol in his army, and nobody was there to provide alcohol, and then said that with this army, I can fight and free Jerusalem, and he did. But unfortunately, nowadays in the army, there are people who, as I said, and please excuse me to say so, according to even some Western commentators in regards to the politician in Indian subcontinent, including Pakistan, the politicians are brown in color and British in mentality. On this context, the Taliban is created, Iran is encircled, and the Ishaq Gilani is going to continue its presence in Pakistan, although the governor of Soba Sarhad is expelling him. How do you justify these issues?
I don't have to justify anything for the simple reason that I do not believe, because there is so much of information that is spread, so many conspiracy theories get concocted. Sometimes I think that when people talk about, these developments in my time, that I must have been sleeping for a couple of years and these things happened because I'd never heard of them. But people are past masters and they do that, they concoin, and after that, the problem is they have said that and now I have to answer that falsified story. So that is the reason that I always prefer that people can ask me, what did the Taliban do? How did the Taliban come? Not because someone has cooked up a story and I have to answer for that. That is now. But the more important thing is, yes, certain military people like Salahuddin Ayyubi, Ataturk, Napoleon, de Gaulle, there are a number of them, Eisenhower, number of them who have also turned out to be good presidents or good leaders, civil leaders. But you're right, have taught the scholar themselves, they have to collect the right type of team and know that their military training was not going to influence the way they have going to run the country. It has to be run. And nowadays, Napoleon was at that time and Salahuddin Ayyubi was 1,000 years ago. But right now, the countries and the relationships are so complex that the military leaders alone, they have no chance to even administer their countries, leave aside, create that type of relationship with outside countries. And you need not one man, you need a large number of people to put the whole thing together. So military people do not disqualify themselves from becoming the head of the state, but they can come about the proper route, like Eisenhower gets elected, or through a revolution like some of the others did. But after that, they know that it's not the military acumen alone that will happen. After all, that code Napoleon became, this was not a military code, it was a civil code that evolved. So these are those factors that have to be taken. But on your other things, I have to very strongly say, don't believe in a narrative, like I don't believe in anyone, unless I have reasons to believe that it must make sense. It has to be proven. It has, it does not have to come from these anonymous and dubious sources. And it's a very big test till you come to the conclusion that this may be about 50% correct that you have heard. And the example is whatever you have just quoted about Beg and all, for heaven's sake.
سوال من این بود که جنرال اسلم بیگ لیدرشیز پاکستان گفته بود که طالبا به خاطر محاصره ایران به وجود آمدن و ایشان گفتند که جنرال اسلم بیگ خطاهای زیادی کرده، سخنهای به مورد فراوان گفته، ولی من میتونم بگویم که همچی یک سخن را نگفتن. در ارتباط با مسئله سوال دوم که من مطرح کردم این بود که بنا به نظری که یا بنا به خبری که در کریسن اینترنشنال چاپ کانادا خواندم، برای اولین بار سفیر انگلستان در اسلام آباد طرح به وجود آمدن طالبان را مطرح کرد، عنوان کرد و بعداً خب طالبان به وجود میاد و نظامی ها در پاکستان دست بالا داره و این برای یک کشور مسلمان شایسته نیست که سرنوشت نهایی و تصمیم آخریش نظامی ها بگیرن، چنانچه که در جوامع پیشرفته مثل اتحادیه اروپا یکی از شرایطی است که کشور میتونه عضو اتحادیه اروپا باشه که نظامی ها در رأس قدرت قرار نگیرن و این در حالی است که در پاکستان همچین یک واقعیت است و این در حالی است که خب پاکستان بر اساس انگیزه های اسلامی به وجود آمد، آرمان علام اقبال یک چیز دیگری بود و امروزه ما شاهد سیاستمدارایی هستیم که اونا رنگ پوستشان نسواری و طرز تفکرشان انگلیسی است، چنانچه که حتی نصیرالله بابر بنا به یک نقل از گروه احمد قادیانی است و این آقا پشت سر حکمتیار است و از به اصطلاح مربیان و پدر طالبان است. خب اینا همش نشان دهنده یک نفوذ بسیار عمیق خارجی ها در قضایای داخلی افغانستان و پاکستان است، از جمله ای که اسحاق گیلانی را گورنر یا حاکم صوبه سرحد دستور اخراج داد و ایشان در مصاحبه خود گفت که دیپلمات امریکایی بایستی شد که تصمیم عقب زده شد و من بتونم که باشم و نظر ایشان این بود که نخیر این مسائل بیشتر مبتنی بر تئوری توطئه است. یکی دومی که در پاکستان ما نقش نظامیان را نقش پررنگ و تصمیم گیرنده نهایی نمیبینیم، کما اینکه نظامیان هم نمیشه که سلب صلاحیت حضور در سیاست شوند، برای اینکه بسیاری وقتا بسیاری از این نظامیای برجسته بودند که در سیاست حضور مؤثر داشتن، مثل ناپلیون، ایزنهاور، مثل خود سلطان صلاح الدین ایوبی و همچنان جنرال دوگل و اینا تونستن که نقش آفرینی کنن و بنابراین موضوع یعنی ابعاد گسترده داره و آنچه که یعنی مطرح شد شاید بتونیم بگیم که 50% درست بود.
بسیار زیاد تشکر. نزدیک به 2 ساعت است که ما برنامه را پیش میبریم. ما فکر میکنم بخش از سوالا را داشتیم، ولی در مجموع با توجه به وضعیت آشفته افغانستان و طرز تلقی مردم مبنی بر این که بخش مهم از مشکل افغانستان همسایه جنوبی ما یعنی پاکستان است، خوب بود یا خوب است یا خوب می شود که ما معلومات بیشتر از عمق سیاست پاکستان در قبال افغانستان پیدا کنیم و فکر میکنم بخشی از اون معلومات امروز توانستیم از این گفتگو یا مصاحبه انتقال بدهیم. بیشتر باید از پاکستان بدانیم، از فعال، از رییس‌های، از دولت، از مردم، از جغرافیا، از وضعیت اقتصادی، اجتماعی، تاریخی و سیاسی و ژئوپلیتیکی پاکستان. و مطالب مهم جناب درانی اشاره کردن و بخشی از سوالا را هم پاسخ ندادن، در واقع تفره رفتن. ولی اون چی که مسلم است و مشخص است، مردم متوجه میشن که یک مهمان چقدر شفاف و صادق است با مخاطب. ما انتظار داریم جدای از پست‌های حقوقی مهمانا با مردم سخن بگویند و با تاریخ نظر داشته باشند، چرا که تاریخ و مردم شخصیت‌های حقیقی و حقوقی را قضاوت می‌کنند. ما انتظار داشتیم از جناب اسد درانی به عنوان یک کسی که ریشه در جغرافیای افغانستان داشته و پست‌های مهم را گذرانده و در حال حاضر تاثیرگذار است در حوزه استخباراتی، سیاسی، نظامی، با توجه به تجارب زیادی که دارند، امروز پل باشند بین مردم افغانستان و مردم پاکستان، جدای از حاکمیت‌های موجود که در حاکمیت افغانستان و پاکستان نقد و نظر، موافق و مخالف وجود دارد و اینا ثابت و پایدار نیستند، ولی مردمان سرزمین یا ملت‌ها به عنوان میزبان همیشه پایدار هستند. امیدواریم در آینده بتوانیم دو همسایه نیک و خوب باشیم و دخالت‌های به امور سیاسی و اجتماعی هم نداشته باشیم و در یک فرایند برد تعامل صادقانه، برادرانه و همسایه‌داری نیک داشته باشیم. ما تشکر میکنم از جناب آقای حسینی که بسیار زحمت کشیدن، یکی دو روز است درگیر هستن با این کارهای ترجمه. شما میدانید که کار ساده و آسان نیست. و همچنان از جناب اسد درانی که قبول زحمت کردن، در سن 83 سالگی 2 ساعت نشستن و صحبت کردن. امیدواریم در آینده خودشان یا کسانی دیگری که در حوزه پاکستان کارهایی کردن و تجربه دارن با ما وصل کنن که از طریق صفحه سیاست افغانستان بتوانیم معلومات با اهمیت بگیریم، زیرا در پرتو معلومات صحیح و دقیق میتوانیم بهترین تصمیم و تصامیم سیاسی و ملی را اتخاذ کنیم. بسیار کوتاه از طرف این عقیر و مردم افغانستان از آقای اسد درانی تشکر کنین و همچنان از مردم عزیز ما هم سپاسگزاریم. امیدواریم بتوانیم یک چراغ را روشن کنیم که بتوانیم تصامیم دقیق با ضریب خطای کم بگیریم.
On behalf of myself and the people of Afghanistan, I would like to thank you for answering our questions. Throughout this lengthy discussion, you answered our questions, and in some parts you declined to answer the question and the answers were not transparent, but we thank you very much for your time. I also thank Mr. Husseini for his efforts in the last 2 days. I want to say that you can act as a bridge between Afghanistan and Pakistan. We Afghans need to know more about Pakistan, about its economy, politics, military role in politics, its depth of strategic policies in relation to Afghanistan. We need to have brotherly relations with Pakistan, good neighborhood, cooperation, and by having this kind of relationships, we can have a better process, which in this process, both countries enjoy a win-win kind of dealings with each other. And we would be more than happy to know other politicians and military men to come forward in this channel, the page of Afghanistan politics, to be interviewed so there is more understanding in regards to Pakistan's perspective. So we thank you very much for your time and your answer.
It will be my privilege to be your guest again. Thank you very much. Grateful to all of you.
برای ما خوشبختی بود که در این مصاحبه شرکت کردم و من به همه شما سلام و سپاس تقدیم میکنم.
سپاسگزاریم از شما جناب آقای حسینی بار دیگر و جناب استاد درانی و همایانان عزیز. بسیار میبخشید که پرسش‌ها زیاد بود، نخواستیم مهمان بیشتر از خسته بسازیم، ولی در آینده قول میدم به شما که به زوایای دیگر از پرسش‌های شما خواهیم پرداخت. شب و روزتان بخیر.
Thank you everybody, Mr. Darani and our people who are the audience. In the future, I promise that we will make more efforts to have such interviews so we can have more information.
Inshallah. Inshallah.
Have a nice day, everyone.